All right, it is 7 o'clock. If I may call the meeting to order, please. We are in council chambers, Tuesday, April the 11th. No snowstorm today, so life is good. Council, may I please have a motion to, I need to go to the Mr. Nader-Rosny first before I ask for approval of the agenda. Mr. Nader-Rosny, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As it relates to the agenda, I've received correspondence from Music Aurora. They have withdrawn their request. So item C1 sub R9 is removed from the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Nader-Rosny. So with that amendment, would someone care to move the agenda as amended, please? Councillor Pirie, Councillor Kim, comments or questions on the agenda as amended? All in favor then? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Council, declarations, pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, please. Seeing none, presentations. I don't believe we have any presentations this evening, so we'll move into delegations, and we have one delegate, Mr. John Gallo. It's becoming a regular. Former Councillor John Gallo. Welcome, sir. 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Before I start, I just wanted, we have a group of Mexicans that are visiting my kids' school at St. Jerome, and we're hosting one of them, and it's Santiago right over there is visiting from Mexico. Welcome to Aurora and to Canada. I wanted to follow up on my discussion from last week. I was somewhat dismayed that I haven't been contacted since then to answer any of my concerns that I brought up last week. Some of them through your meeting afterwards were answered. Councillor Thompson mentioned the minutes to the ad hoc committee that basically are non-existent or small report in small paragraphs in some of the reports. Councillor Humphreys did mention the public art policy, and I was somewhat dismayed that nobody moved forward to somehow direct staff to not take my word for that particularly large issue that I brought forward. I was hoping someone would have asked staff to generate some type of report or advise you on whether or not what I said is true or not. And I would remind you, I know I mentioned it last week, that it's part of the official plan, and it's a requirement. It's not something that you can or cannot do. It's a requirement, and as of right now, if you haven't done it already, you're clearly not in compliance with the official plan. So I would love for someone to step up and direct staff to at least advise you on what the next steps could be on that. I believe during the meeting we got an answer for the Green Municipal Fund that we didn't get it, and I was hopeful to try to find out why we didn't get it, to try to understand and learn, perhaps for the next time. The garbage issue also, I know I had a quick chat with Mr. Mayor about that, but I'd love to know where we stand. Perhaps someone could direct staff to advise why there is inequities, if I'm accurate in that, which I think I am. I know Industrial Parkway South does have municipal pickup, both garbage and recycling. Industrial Parkway North does not. Bayview does not. Yonge Street does. Why the inequities? I guess I didn't want to come here, but I was somewhat disappointed that I brought up 5 issues and I wasn't contacted, and no one from council moved any of those items forward to at least see some type of resolution. So that's what I'm asking for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Motion first of all to receive Councillor Gallo's delegation. Councillor Maracas, Councillor Thompson, any comments or questions for the delegate, please? Councillor, hit your button there, kid.
Oh.
Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Abel.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Gallo, for coming this evening, and former councillor. I appreciated your comments last week, and I was checking them off, and I do believe that we didn't give clear direction to staff now that you brought it forward, and I was looking forward to speaking. It's on the agenda this evening, and I'll make sure that some of those items are captured. The one, for sure, the art policy, and some of those questions. I'm sure staff is prepared to answer some of those questions tonight as well, but thanks for coming forward. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, John, for coming out and delegating, and good points that actually we should be watching as council. The public art on the official plan, can you just sort of go on? I know that in our term we had earmarked a budget line, it seems to me, for public art, and I believe we did it because it was part of the strategic plan. But if you have any information just to pass on, I would be most interested to hear.
Section 4.4, and it says that council will promote the creation of public art that reflects the town's cultural diversity and heritage by, and the fourth point is requiring that 1% of the capital budget for all major regional and local municipal buildings be dedicated to public art.
Careful. We're breaking in
Very much, and that's exactly as I recall. And I think to date we have not spent any money. But I think the opportunity for a new building, a facility like this, we had said last term that would be our first opportunity to follow through with that. And you are asking for a response in us.
It's not part of your budget list that I've seen. I haven't seen it in any report regarding the JOC, so I'm going to assume you haven't budgeted for it. I'm going to assume that the issue wasn't even raised before I brought it to your attention, and it's specific to the reason it's in there is, and it's not a bad thing, I think it's a pretty good thing actually, is whenever we're building large capital projects, that 1% goes to public art, and this would classify, in my opinion, as a large capital project.
Councillor Abel.
And I totally agree with you. And I know Councillor Humphrey says she's going to bring it up, so I look for the opportunity to correct that oversight if it is an oversight. So thank you.
Any other comments for the delegate? Councillor Gardner. Oh, I'm sorry. I tell you to press your button and then I don't look at the sheet. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you again, John, for coming out. Just to be clear, and certainly the public art policy will get addressed, but some of the other things you're looking for is further explanation on why we weren't successful on the Green Municipal Fund, as well as...
I had made the suggestion that you seek a third party at arm's length consultant to review the entire process from inception to end. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you had mentioned that the York Region does that type of thing, and if they can do it for free, fantastic. It's a good thing.
Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, John, thank you for coming. I did get your email late. I must apologize. I was out of the country, so. But in regards to the garbage collection, just to let you know, I did have conversations with our former director that's not with us anymore about that. I had conversations with our MPP about that, and I think it might have been you that brought it up to our MPP, and so I did bring that up, but unfortunately, as you can see, he's not here, so I haven't received any answers on that, but definitely I think it's a good thing to look into that, because I agree with you, there is a little bit of an inequality up and down on certain areas, so definitely.
We currently, in 2017, in Aurora, throw away recycling. Some of those retailers, I went into one of them and I said, where's your recycling? And we don't have one. What do you do with it? Throw it in the trash. I brought it with me. I didn't throw it away. But I think that's a real issue.
Councillor Kim.
Thanks, Mr. Gallo. I came in late last week, so I couldn't formally, I didn't even know you had delegated, but thanks for all the comments, they're invaluable, and if no one else speaks to it, then we'll certainly direct staff to bring back a report to bring some answers to your questions.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Gallo for coming forward again, second week in a row. And I know that this was an area of concern for you during your term on councils. So thank you for staying in the loop, because that doesn't always happen. And I'd also like to say I was not able to attend last week. And because Councillor Gallo was here during open forum, which is before the actual council meeting starts, I wasn't able to hear his comments. And so I would like council to review this aspect of the new procedural bylaw that we have. I have spoken to it before, but for somebody to come forward and make comments about something on our agenda and then not being able to hear those comments, especially if you're a person who's away, it puts you at a disadvantage. So thank you for coming back.
Actually did it on purpose because, you know, it wasn't my intent to come here this week again. I wanted to bring it to your attention, knowing it wasn't part of the agenda, and hopefully something would have come out from it. I'm hopeful tonight that will happen.
All in favor of receipt of Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gartner?
Thank you. But I was speaking from my point of view, and there will be other times when other people are away for a general committee and will not have the advantage of hearing anybody who's at open forum. So I just make that comment, and also like to acknowledge that your family is in the audience.
All in favor of receiving Councillor Gartner's, Councillor, Mr. Gallo's delegation? Thank you. You're getting me all confused here, John. Contrary? That's carried. Thank you very much for coming out. And welcome to your guests from Mexico. That is it for delegations. We'll move into our consent items. We'll start off with item C1 with all the sub-items in there, C1 through C5, and then R1 through R10 with the exclusion of R9. We all have a list. Is there anything in there that anybody would like to discuss? That is from last week's general committee meeting. Councillor Gartner. I apologize, Councillor Maracas.
I just thought we were supposed to be using the buttons.
We are supposed to be using the buttons. My apology. I would have pulled C1 and C5 last week, so I'll pull that, and also R2.
I'm sorry?
C1 and C5. From the general committee agenda, which I think is item 5, I would like to pull C1 and C5. And R2.
R2?
Thank you.
Is just, do you have a couple of questions, or do you wish to move them to the regular agenda?
Well, actually, probably to the regular agenda, because I have an ask for both of those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maracas?
R3.
R3?
R3, please.
Councillor Thompson?
Councillor Thompson? I just want to make a comment to R1.
You want to do that now, or you want to pull the other?
When everybody's done. If there's nothing further, then I'll make a
I
comment to
think
R1.
that's it.
So, I mean, I appreciate over the last week or so with regards to all the information staff have provided me. I've been asking a lot of questions with regards to the whole 10-year capital road reconstruction program and why, 65 is the score being, advocated for by staff. I think it's important that we try and understand what that optimal level is. Each year we spend millions of dollars on the reconstructions of roads, and it's a significant impact both to our reserves as well as from a budgetary perspective in terms of the amount of cash to capital we contribute every single year. And so, again, I appreciate staff giving as much information as they can. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm totally satisfied with that optimal level 65 in terms of the pavement quality index, especially given some of the differences between neighboring municipalities around us and within York Region. So, for example, just crossing the borders, you can see town borders, you can see a difference in road conditions, and so it's still not necessarily 100% clear for me, but, you know, that is our current level, and it's a standard we're trying to maintain.
Thank you. Councilor Marcus? Okay. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions for about the tax ratio. Through you, maybe, and Mr. Elliott. If we do shift to the revenue neutral and shift back the commercial and industrial, will that increase the amount of business, the amount businesses pay into the regional capping pool?
Mr. Elliott?
And sorry, through you, maybe if you could also explain what I don't know if everyone knows what the regional capping pool is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the regional capping pool, for those that are unfamiliar with it, is still a legacy from the introduction of CVA back in 1998, when businesses, the non-residential properties, were limited in the amount of tax increase that was going to arise on their billing from the old regime into the new regime. And within York Region, some businesses would continue to pay less than their fair share under the new regime, and while others would be forced to continue to pay more than their fair share under the old regime, from the old regime, to pay the balance. And it was really a pooling. It was a net zero to the municipalities, but if one person was offered protection from tax increase, it was paid for by a clawback of their expected reduction under the new CVA pool. And so the funds would just go through the clearinghouse in the region, and that is how it would work. Under this regime, we're nearly done with the capping pool. There's very, very few properties left that are in the capping regime, and once they're out, they stay out. We expect, I heard from the Commissioner of Finance at the region, that the capping is expected to be finished within 4 years. There's one hangout property that's particularly troublesome. So the analysis that was done on this was not focused in on that particular issue. If we, what we're doing is we're keeping the burden in class, and so theoretically it should not have an impact or any dramatic impact on the capping clawback program or on the businesses. What was to happen is, under the status quo scenario, there was a large shift from businesses onto the residential. The revenue neutral option attempts to mitigate that back to where it was, so that if just pull a number out of the air, if the non-res class was paying $40 million in tax in total, they would continue to pay $40 million this year, and not quite a bit less.
Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then just one more through you to Mr. Elliott as well. If property values began to take a nosedive, and there was a natural tax shift occurring the other way, would we be looking and coming forward to look at increasing or changing the tax ratio again to mitigate that change?
Mr. Elliott?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would probably be my recommendation. My belief is that the tax burden by class should not be shifting during a reassessment. Just because your property value went up by 25% and the non-res went up by 5%, there shouldn't be a burden shift. We adjust the rates so that overall everybody is still paying the same total amount of tax in total, and it's just distributed within the class. Allowing it to shift between starts to create unpredictability in your tax bills. And so in the event that it was going the other way, I would be recommending neutrality again.
Councilor?
Thank you. And then I guess my last question would be to you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious. I maybe you did speak to it last week and I didn't hear it.
This week.
No, pardon?
At Region?
No, last week here at Council. yeah, I don't know if you spoke to it or not. I did watch, but if you did, I'm just wondering maybe if you can kind of give us your perspective and what you're going to be, are you going to be advocating on what the majority of us are asking for at the region? Or, okay, thank you.
So that's that, you're good then with R3?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Dow. I have a question with respect to R7. Last week at committee, the third clause was referred back to staff. I just wanted to get an update. We didn't put a time limit on it, and I want to know if this report is going to come back to council before budget begins for 2018.
Mr. Nader Rosny, please.
That was the grant funding?
It was the...
In your request, sorry, I mean.
Yes, R7 clause 3.
So the short answer, Mr. Chair, is that yes, that will come back before budget.
That's good, okay. And I guess we did have some discussions. It's not in the kind of operative clause here, but we had some discussions with respect to this. So staff knows what the report's going to be detailed with respect to not only, how, the amount of options or the amount of requests that we get currently and maybe detailing that, but also options for handling them and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to be getting back. It's not just going to be what we've got in the past, but no way forward, I guess. So I'm seeing nodding. So my answers are being, or my questions are being answered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a motion then to accept items C2, C3, C4, R1, R3, R4, R5, R6, R7, R8, R10. Councillor Perry? Huh? Councillor Perry?
To clarify, Mr. Mayor, this is a consent agenda, so shouldn't we be pulling out all those that are not being spoken?
Well, we're pulling out C1, C5, and R2, so we need a motion to accept the other items.
If that's how we want to do it, okay.
Thank you. You moving that?
Sure.
Second, please. Councillor Marakis, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Gartner, you had C1? It's not a consent agenda. The water quality.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked that this be put on the consent agenda last week because I think that the community is very interested in knowing about the quality of their drinking water. So I would ask that in the future it just go on a consent agenda. There's 3 pages here that are just a very basic report, and there could be then a link to the website if somebody wanted to have more information. But I think through the years I find that the quality of our drinking water has been pretty important. So let's have it on an agenda.
Any other comments? Motion, would you move, Councillor Thompson?
Just to follow up on Councillor Gardner's point, perhaps it's something that our manager of communications can take back and think of a way to enhance it on the website so you don't have to necessarily find the report itself, but some sort of information or a scorecard on the drinking water quality in Aurora.
Councillor Gartner, will you move the report, please?
I would, but I would also, I appreciate the suggestion. I think it's a good one, but I'd also like to see it on a consent agenda in the future. We don't have to pull it, but I'd like it there on the record.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Will you move the report, please?
I will.
And Councillor Thompson seconding. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Gartner, C5. Will you move that first, please?
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Humphreys. Thank you. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. Also ask this to be put on the consent agenda. As we've seen, and certainly I've seen over many years, there's a lot of interest in planning applications. So I think the planning application status, the list and the status is important for the public to see. In particular, I don't know if anybody has their report, but in particular, the first 3 pages are just very basic. They're with the analysis. But what I would like to see up front in the report is In the analysis we have, starting on page 1, we have all the new planning applications that have happened since the last time we got the report. So I would like to see a bit of a more fulsome description of those within the first 3 pages. And then also the changes from our last planning report. They're all through the report. I think they're 34 pages. They're in bold. So if anybody wants to know what the changes are, they've got to go through the whole report. So, for example, they're on page 7, 11, 13, 14, 21. Could we, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno, just have a list right up front that says what the changes are? And it's also helpful for council, because to go through all of these pages is really, well, it's a chore that I don't think we need to do. We just need to know what's changed. Do I need to make a motion for that?
I think, Mr. Ramuno, perhaps you could take that under advisement and then come back to us with some suggestions.
Thank you, and it all speaks to accessibility and transparency for the public.
Thank you. Any other comments on the item? All in favor of receipt, please? Opposed? That is carried. And the last one, Councillor Gartner, you had R2, the joint operations.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this has to do with the JOC, the Joint Operations Center.
Have the motion first, please.
Move as is, please.
Thank you. Councillor Perry seconding.
Thank you. I was sorry I couldn't be here last week for the discussion, although I did watch it later on in the week, and it was painful and it was confusing, even to someone who's been sitting here for the table for all this whole process. So thank you to Mr. Elliott. I think it was a very a practical report that you put forward. And with respect to the summary and things that could change or should change, I'd just like to speak to 3 of them. From where I sit, I see that there were 3 problems. The first one was it started with the land purchase. Thank you, I'll just wait. The first problem with the JOC to me was it started with the land purchase. That land sat vacant for many, many years because the developer couldn't develop it. So I think we could have done a little more due diligence right up front to see what the issues were with the land, and just gone in with our eyes more open. The second problem was that a project of this size, you really can't do it without an experienced project manager. And I don't know where our heads were, and my head was at the table when we discussed this project from the very beginning. But you need to have a project manager, an experienced project manager. We would have spent more money on that, but I think we would have saved more money and we would have had more credibility with the public. The third problem, as I see it, is that Councillor Thompson addressed it well last week. We had an oversight committee, and the terms of reference were clear. I think when we put together a committee like that and we give them that responsibility, perhaps they need, if they feel they need to have expert help, then they should have that.
Yeah, not to the...
We are in a cooperative situation through the region. The N6 uses the auditing services of the region, and so we've already suggested we will go through that same process to get an auditor involved. It is basically on a cost recovery, so we do pay our share, and the question remains as to whether we will use up one of our allotted audit spaces or whether this will be an extra audit. It's well into their audit cycle, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to juggle, but either way we will be able to get the audit done.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Similar to Councillor Tom's question, I just wanted to make sure that Councillor Gartner's amendment for an independent audit is the same as your suggestion about getting the region to do it. And as long as that's the case, then I'm fine with it.
Any other comments on the amendment? Councillor Perry, Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. It might just be restating Councillor Thompson's question differently, but I just want to make sure that in Councillor Gartner's mind, the region is far enough that it is a third party from us, as opposed to going outside with either a private entity or some other public entity.
Councillor Gartner?
Thank you, and I would amend the motion to say from the region, but should that incur an extra cost, I think it should come back to council and we could discuss it, because I do think an independent audit is in order here, and if we have to pay for it, then we'll have to pay for it.
Mr. Nader-Rosny?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, regardless of whether we use one of our existing audit spaces or we get another one added, we always cover the cost of that. So there will be a cost, but it's just the representative share of the time of the auditor for the region.
Any further comments or questions on the amendment? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Gartner.
The second amendment would be following what Councillor Kim was saying at the last meeting. The list of lessons learned from Mr. Elliott was short. It was concise, but it certainly wasn't comprehensive. And, maybe we won't ever do a building of this size again, and maybe we will. But I still think it would be important knowledge and information for our staff to have a complete lessons learned, and also think it would be instructive for future councils if they do undertake such a large construction project again. So I'm not sure how one would go about that. Maybe Mr. Elliott has an idea, or Mr. Nader-Rosny.
If you've got an amendment, Councillor Gartner, you've got to state it.
I think we need to have a comprehensive list of lessons learned that would be instructive for staff, council, and future councils.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Humphreys? Speakers to the amendment. Councillor Humphreys, is that you for the amendment? Or?
Yes. I'd like to speak to the amendment, thank you, but again, it's the original. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, I believe there was a good list provided, absolutely. I think there probably needs to be a little bit more to it, and normally when this happens, and I know that we put Mr. Elliott under the gun to provide us with the operational review and the costs and so on, but usually that, you have quite a detailed lessons learned and what we need to do if it does happen again. So I appreciate that, and it needs to happen. So thanks.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From my experience, most thorough independent audits include a lessons learned or analysis and a recommendation section, and which is usually quite thorough. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nader-Rosny, would this audit not include a lessons learned section, a more detailed one?
Through Mr. Chair, I mean, it depends on your terminology. Lessons learned can also be a more editorialized version of what staff experienced and lessons we learned along the way, whereas the audit would focus on concrete results that are as a result of the audited facts. So I would think that lessons learned would include those items discovered by an auditor, but could go further and comment on process and things that aren't necessarily auditable.
Councillor? Councillor Kim?
Sorry, again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nader-Rosny, so you're saying that they will have a detailed recommendation section?
Mr. Nader-Rosny?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would any audit would be trying to come to a list of items that they see as being needing improvement, process improvements, or things or inaccuracies that they find. So that I would think that the auditor, if they're doing a complete audit, would comment on those things otherwise. And I was just expanding on the fact that a lessons learned might go a little further and talk about experiences and things that aren't necessarily proven out in an audit form with fact.
Councillor?
Well, based on what Mr. Nader-Rosny stated and what I've experienced, I'm fine with the audit for now to come back with a lessons learned section. I hate to pay for another secondary source to provide us something similar. And in fact, they'd probably need the original audit's analysis in order for them to do a recommendation or a lessons learned. So I'm thinking that perhaps we just take it one step at a time, get the independent audit, see what they establish and recommend, and if we're not satisfied with that, we can have a third party do a lessons learned review for us, but they would, I would imagine, use the original analysis from York Region to get that done. So it seems like an order of operations is start with the York Region review and then go from there.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to the amendment, the overview of recommendations, and I think it's here that if we receive the audit first, we can incorporate those recommendations into the overall list of lessons learned for future council and future staff. And also, like, if we're going to go in this amendment, that there is a comparative. So maybe just 3 large capital projects that we've done, a very short point form, perhaps like the SARC, Library, Town Hall, just to what the budget was it on budget, was it on time? Just so a framework to say, you know what, it never happened before and it happened this time, or it did happen and these are what they were at that time. Because I just think it gives us a little bit of framework to work with when we're addressing the situation. So I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if that's, I have to put that as amendment, or those notes are taken if we go ahead with the amendment.
The CEO is making notes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Humphreys.
It's okay. It's been said. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gartner. I'll go to Councillor Maracas first, if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to add another building to that. I think if we're going to look at that, we should look at the leisure complex as well.
Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think in a bad situation, we have a really good opportunity to add to our corporate council knowledge. And so that's why I'm asking for this amendment. I don't know if anyone, I don't think anyone was here for the SARC, but that ended up in a couple of lawsuits. So, you know, we do need to learn from our past experience. So let's make something good of this situation.
Calling the vote on the amendment with respect to the lessons learned. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one more amendment. Listening to the discussion, I think it would be in order for council and for the public to have one more report from Mr. Elliott. And that report would give us a total of everything that we've spent on the JOC. So we had the $103,000 that Mr. Nadarozny discussed. Then we have $1,493,000 in other things that have to be done. And then we also have Mr. Downey's piece.
Okay, if that's a motion, I'm going to have an amendment. I'm going to ask for a second on that. If you're looking
But
for...
the point is we need to have a complete total of what this costs the public.
Okay, well, I think that was discussed last week. So if you want to make that an amendment, I'll ask for a second. Then I'm going to go to Mr. Nadarozny.
Thank you. I didn't see it in the motions coming out of the item.
I'll go to Mr. Nadarozny now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe page 2 of item R2 identifies all of the costs as council had requested, and Mr. Elliott may want to expand on that, but the first chart at the top of that page is all the actual costs of building it, including the estimated costs to complete the items that were removed from scope, and the bottom chart refers to the expected financing costs based on how long we projected that it will take to get the development fees to cover those costs. So I think that page summarizes the full cost of the project from an actual cost, a future cost to complete, and as well as the financing costs throughout the project.
Mr. Elliott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were three items that were referred to in page 6 of 12 in my report that we don't have estimated costs for yet. That was the set of stairs, a dump bin arrangement, and a topsoil issue. It was my intent to work with clerks following this meeting to update the agendas with a revised schedule on page 13. Attachment 1, that would show those three items detailed, but with a TBA kind of amount, so that it's all on the same list, so that it's not lost on any reader that those three items are part of yet to be completed.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I was just going to draw attention to attachment 1 that Mr. Elliott says, because it does provide a detailed breakdown. However, the report does say there are some costs that still need to be determined. So,
Councillor Kim.
Given the, when I looked at this last week's report and previous reports, I wasn't satisfied with the report prior to last week's, but I'm satisfied that I have the information that I need to conclude how much it costs currently, which amounts to 27.3 million, not including the Scanlon lands. With the proceeds there, would I think, in my mind, you have to offset, but 27.3 million is clearly there if you just add three numbers. I do understand that there are options there that will likely include, which is going to go into 2018 capital budget, which will be in discussion in the fall. So I'm content with Mr. Elliott's TBD. If there's going to be another number added in, which is whether it be asphalting, I mean, that's part of the investigation and part of the options in my mind. And so I'm fine for now, because you're going to have this discussion in the fall. We discussed the options, so I'm fine with the numbers as is. Whether you give or take, $500,000 or $1 million, I don't think that really makes a big difference at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. I think you're.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will ask for a recorded vote on this, because give or take $500,000, give or take $100,000, at the end of the day, we got a 25-page report. Even if it's just a memo that's on a council agenda.
Councillor Gardner, hold on. Are you putting an amendment on the floor?
I have put it on the floor.
Well, it hasn't been seconded.
Okay.
Councillor Maracus.
I think we owe it to the public, and we owe it to ourselves to know exactly how much this cost.
Well, that's the purpose of the audit.
I thought, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to have on a future agenda, when everything is finished, a very simple report. It can be a one-page report, a two-page report that says exactly how much this cost. And
Mr. Nader-Rosny.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we understand the intent of it. I just want to clarify that even the 1.4 million in future costs, those are just estimates. So you're not in a position to know the final cost until you ultimately decide which of those items that we've taken out you're going to put in, and then we actually go through the procurement process to get those things done. So I'm just letting you know that would be an estimate at that stage. It still wouldn't be the final cost in true terms.
Okay, Councillor.
Wait.
Okay, to just quickly to this last amendment from Councillor Gardner, Councillor Abel Humphreys Kim.
Thank you, and I understand what Councillor Gardner wants, and I think based on what our Mr. CAO, Mr. Nader-Rosny said, that it will be a while before that takes place, because we're going to do the audit, we're going to complete the unfinished work, there'll be fine lines and numbers on that, and then so we'll go through another budget cycle, I think, obviously, and so I have no issue supporting that. I think the spirit is that once all these things are here, we can finally put it all together, because as it is right now, it's not complete. Not what we want. We want to have an audit, we want to have lessons learned, and we want to complete everything, and then we want to be able to say at the very end, this is what it cost. And because I remember, it depends on how you look at it. We talk about construction costs, and we talk about land acquisition, then we talk about sale of the surplus land when we vacate it, and then we have a piece of land that we are also, we used to use. So all these things have to be figured to get that line, what it costs the taxpayer. And for clarity and transparency, I am in support of moving forward in that direction.
Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand where Councillor Gardner is coming from as well, because, I mean, this was a good report. The struggle that I'm having, and I continue to have, is that the scope of the project changed. And on page 6 of 25, it's clear that, you know, prior to final tendering, staff and the architect worked to, quote unquote, value engineer the project to bring the estimated cost to within a budget target. In that process, a number of elements of the project scope were dropped. And now these elements are now considered for the safety and security of the facility and have now been shown on attachment 1 as cost to complete the project. There's all kinds of things that were dropped for this project in order to meet the budget. So I understand it's an estimate, but I think in the way it came to us in dribbles and drabs throughout the whole process is why we keep going back to lessons learned and an audit. It's because what the plan was set out to be didn't occur. I'm not suggesting that the JOC was not required. Absolutely, the town totally outgrew Scanlon and needed to be replaced. That's fine. I'm glad that we're in a position to support the town the way we need to support the town and its growth. But it's a real problem for me. It talks about a bunch of things: the staircase, a dumpster bin that we're using at the Machel Yard. We've got to build some. There's lots of things. And I believe that we owe it to ourselves to take this report when we have, it doesn't have to happen overnight, but a clear understanding of what was spent, what still needs to be spent operating, and maybe on one chart, because there's 3 different charts, and I appreciate Councillor Kim is used to budgets and being able to look at things in different areas, but it needs to be one kind of clear, concise report and easy for us to say, yep, we're over budget, and here's what we still have to consider to complete the project in its entirety. So I appreciate everyone's maybe struggling with how much council keeps going back at this, but we need to do it to satisfy ourselves and the residents. So I appreciate going forward, and I'm looking forward to having that final report whenever it's going to be ready for us.
Councillor Kim. Turn it back on. He turned it off by accident.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure how else to put it, but I feel like we're playing political football with this item, and I'm not very pleased with that. I've mentioned over a year ago that we need clarification with the numbers, how much did this cost, and let's bring a report forward. And we've had 3 renditions. I think this is the 3rd. And it seems like we're playing hot potatoes, as at first no one wants to touch it, and now everyone wants to touch it to play political football. And I'm sorry if I'm upsetting people, but how many times can you slice and dice the numbers? I count 27.3 million. If you don't count the proceeds of the Scanlon land, and I understand that Mr. Elliott said that we're keeping silos with the sale of the property and the purchase of the property. I think if you can add 2 plus 2, you can put the numbers together. Mr. Nadarasny stated what I was going to state, which is we cannot come up with an exact cost to this because we have variable interest. Just like you don't know exactly what your mortgage cost is going to be after 5 years, we're not going to know the exact cost. We're going to touch on this when we talk about the capital budget in the fall. We have the option items. we're not going to have the exact numbers. I'm fine with that. We have a $28 million amount here, and it will grow. And make no mistake about that. And we certainly all want the same things. We want to know how much it costs or how much it will cost, lessons learned, audit. And I applaud Councillor Gartner for wanting to come up with an exact number, and we all want the same things. We all want the same things. I think we agree, but we're just going around like some of the other items we've had, and I think we can have a recorded vote and all that. I'm fine with the numbers that we've had. It's clear there's going to be some options that we're going to discuss in capital budget, and Mr. Elliott said that there, with the asphalt and others, there's going to be. This is a live document. This project is not complete. It's a live document. The numbers will be updated, and I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gartner, last time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that when council undertakes a project or spends any money of any kind, that we should be able to say what we spent. That's all I'm asking. I want to know what we spent on the JOC, because I think we need to know. I think the public needs to know. I think it needs to be on record. If you want to call that political, I think it's proper that we know when it's finally over how much we spent.
Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I agree that I hear different things going around the table. I hear, let's get the information. I've heard it, let's figure out what the 1.4 is. Let's do that. I've also heard us say, let's get a full cost accounting once we know how much we're spending on the additional items, which of those additional items we want to go forward on. I agree with Councillor Kim that getting another report at this stage of the game won't be of any benefit to us around the council table. But I do agree with Councillor Gartner that once we've decided how much we're spending, once we get the tenders back, to know how much these projects are going to be costing us, at that point we can get additional information. So I think we're all sort of agreeing and disagreeing at the same time. We want, once it's all said and done, we want the information in front of us. But I have a feeling that, talking about it around the table, our wires have gotten across a little bit, and it's a little bit confusing. If Mr. Elliott comes back with a report next week, I don't think Councillor Gartner's motion will be of any value. But if Mr. Elliott comes back with a report in 12 months, once we've tendered everything and we know the final costs, I think that will be of value to us. So, just to reel it all back in, I think that we're all on the same page, but I think it's a question around timing, and that's what we're having an issue with. So I'm in favor of the amendment as long as we all know that it's not coming back right now, it's coming back in a year, in 18 months from now.
Councillor Perry, calling the vote, calling the vote on the amendment, please. All in favor of Councillor Gartner's amendment on the floor. Contrary? That is carried. Oh, certainly. Mr. Clerk? Record a vote, please. Councillor Gartner's you got to do it here. Yeah, that's in the works.
Councillor Gartner has requested a recorded vote on the third amendment to the item R2, which is that staff be directed to provide a report on the total cost of the Joint Operations Center project. Councillor Tom, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Tom votes yes. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Abel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Abel votes yes. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote? Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Marakis, how do you vote? Councillor Marakis votes yes. Councillor Kim, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Peary, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Peary votes yes. Mayor Daw, how do you vote? Yes. And Councillor Gartner, how do you vote? The motion carries.
sir. Back to the main motion as amended. You've already spoken twice on the main motion, Councillor Gardner. Going to go to Councillor Humphreys. Actually, I think Councillor Humphreys,
Yeah.
Councillor Thompson, Abel, and Councillor Gardner, you've already spoken twice on the main motion.
So ask a question,
Right, but
get
then
an
when
answer,
you-
ask a question. So that's not happening with this system. So I don't, I mean, technically I may have spoken
Councillor Gardner.
twice, but it didn't,
Councillor Gardner,
I wasn't
I'm-
able to ask all my questions.
I'm going to Councillor Humphreys, please. Councillor Humphreys had the floor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to state it earlier, and we talked about it last at the GC, and maybe I didn't make it clear enough, but just some questions about the 1% public art that we take out of major projects. I'm just going to ask the question, and you know, it's bad on me that I know that's absolutely in our budgetary descriptions, and that we would do that. Do we account for that, just to be clear? And if we didn't, I'd like to put a motion forward to put that in there and find out where we can get the budgeting from.
Mr. Nader Rossi, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, since the last meeting, have been updated on this a little bit. Basically, while it is a policy of the official plan, at the time that the funding was allocated to this project, there was a pause on that aspect of it. It wasn't clear direction to add that to the project, and the reason being that they hadn't set up how they were going to actually do that, whether there was going to be a reserve fund drawn on, or whether the money would go into reserve, and what had to be done, and so that follow-up work was never done with respect to the official plan policy and how that was going to be implemented. So it's just been omitted since then.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just a quick question as well before we kind of move the motion. We didn't, other than this major project, and forgive me if the description in the policies that we donate, you know, we contribute 1%. Is that for all major projects? But what number is it at? Like, what's major? We did have the AFLC, which was 7 million. Where is the major part? I don't know if we put that in the description of our policy. I can't remember. Does anybody know that?
Mr. Ramuno, is that under planning or the public art, or Mr. Downey?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. True, it is a policy within our official plan under the public art policy section, and it does specifically speak to that, as Mr. Gallo spoke to, that 1% contribution of a municipal capital project be directed to public art, and that a reserve be set up. And
I appreciate that. My question is, what's the major project? Is there a line where we say any projects below this amount of money don't qualify, or all capital projects?
So, Mr. Mayor, no, there is no minimum or maximum. It is just a statement that says 1% of any capital project, municipal capital project, or regional municipal building project.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we'll probably have to think about others that we've done in the past, but in terms of this project, I would like to move a motion forward. It is in our policy. It was a major capital investment, and it is part of our official plan that we deliver on that. So I'd like to move a motion forward to ask staff to look at the 1% contribution of this capital project, and where are we going to get this funding at this point, if that's appropriate.
Mr. Nader Rossi?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in the discussions about this issue, we know we have to bring this forward because, as council member, we're doing a fire hall. And so in our discussions, I've suggested that we have this all cleared up before we come to council for the funding of the fire hall. And if it is acceptable, we will include a section related to the JOC and how potential options of handling this within that process, so that you don't have to do anything here if you're happy with that, because it has to come back to you before we come for financing for the fire hall.
Okay.
Councillor
No, I do know the timing of the fire hall funding, and in that piece, what the time is going to be. I just don't want to lose sight of it for this project. I know we won't. It's documented in discussions here tonight, but I just want to make sure everyone's happy with that.
Well, if you're happy with it.
Do you know the timing of when we're going to get back the funding for the,
When
for the fire hall?
When do you expect that report to come back, Mr. Nader Rossi?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the fire services are very anxious to get construction going on that, so I would think we'd be back to you before the end of this year with a request. No, I'm getting a no. I'm going to go to Mr. Downey.
Mr. Downey?
Oh, you're doing the design.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, generally the recommendation for allocation of the 1% to the public art policy would be done at the award of tender for the project. At that time, you would then know exactly what the cost of that project was, and then part of the recommendations would be not only the approval of the project, but approval of funding to that reserve. And yeah, as far as timing goes, it won't be until next year.
Councillor?
Based on that, I'd like to move forward now. I don't want to lose sight of this. I think it's a major project.
Okay, that'd be amendment.
So if we have amendment to add that staff go back to find out where we're going to get the 1% public art part of this capital contribution.
I need a second, please.
Nobody cares.
This is for the 1%. Councillor Gartner, you're seconding it. Councillor, okay. Speakers to the amendment, please. Councillor Tom. I'm going to go to Mr. Elliott first because he did have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it pleases council, I provided I crafted a recommendation to add here if this issue came up. I suspected it would, and I believe, Linda, do you have that? We're just going to put an amendment on the screen for you. I believe it will address the issue. While we're waiting for that, I do know that at our next Finance Advisory Committee, we're going to review this issue and go back as well for the AFLC, and we'll come back to council with recommendations on that. But we can address the JOC art contribution here tonight if you wish.
Linda, do you have something? Okay, just. Dan, do you have it? Oh, there we go. So Councillor Humphreys, you okay with that? Councillor Gartner, you had seconded. Are you all right with that wording?
I thought the motion that Councillor Humphreys was suggesting was that staff was to look at where this money would come from. I'm in favor of that. I'm not in favor of this.
Okay, is there someone else who would care to second Councillor Humphreys for this amendment? Apparently not. Yeah, please, Councillor Humphreys.
If it's more appealing to council, because I do believe it's a miss, and I don't necessarily suggest it's all our miss here. I would suggest that if staff go back to for the funding amount of $205,000 to be funded by maybe some further investigation by staff, and come back to council with that information. If that's what you're looking for, just, where is the source of funding going to come from? Because you don't like where it's being directed now.
So do you have the amendment, Mr. Clerk? Okay, so we need clarity on the amendment. Mr. Elliott, can you help?
Through you, Mr. Chair, what this recommendation is suggesting is that the contribution to public art be made as if it was originally funded within the budget. And so the funding sources for this project would fund that contribution in the same proportions. So that's what I'm recommending. If council is not happy with these sources as the source of funding, then I'm not sure where you were suggesting it would come from. It would have to come from a tax rate stabilization reserve or some other reserve. So I believe that it's appropriate that it's from the funding sources that funded the project.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can speak to that, absolutely.
Well, no,
Mr.
if this is your, we still do not have a seconder for your
I don't
amendment.
have a seconder at this point, so I
Oh, okay,
don't
hold on.
believe.
Is there a seconder for Councillor Gartner's amendment?
No,
Councillor
Councillor
Humphrey's
Humphreys.
amendment, excuse me.
Okay, so I don't
To
think
this
we have
one.
a seconder.
Then there is not one.
So there's not one. So just to comment, then we can shut this down, this was a miss, should have been captured at the beginning of the project, and it's a lessons learned right there off the top. So we've missed an opportunity to donate $205,005 for public art in our community. We have a Library Square project coming right up. It would have been a perfect opportunity right there. But
Okay,
anyway, we lost. It's okay.
There's no amendment on the floor.
Take it off.
Back to the main motion. Councillor Thompson, on the main motion.
It is on the main motion, but it's going to sort of perhaps extend the debate on the public art policy. But perhaps through you to Mr. Nadarozny, it's my recollection that we actually talked about making a contribution to the Public Art Reserve Fund last term while we had the conversation in the GOC. And council, I believe, made a conscious choice not to do it because we wanted to stay within the budget. So I'm not sure the conversations that you've had with staff, but is it possible just to spend some time to just perhaps either go through some of the older JOC reports? Because I do believe that it's not a miss. I think we as a council made the decision not to do the 1%. I think we had conversations about a 0.5% or a 1% or however it was, and at the time the decision was, but I'm not 100% certain. I've tried to look through some reports myself, but I think council did make a choice not to do it. Our IES manager is not here, who was there at the time, so I don't know if Mr. Downey or Mr. Elliott can speak to it, if they have any recollection either, but if not, perhaps you could just have somebody look at some of the older reports and see if there actually was a debate on the public art policy.
Mr. Nadarozny, please.
See, Mr. Chair, I can't speak to the amount of debate. I did a very preliminary scan of this. There was a two-part motion, one that said that so much be put into the JOC budget, and that an additional amount, the 1%, be put into the art. The first part was passed unamended. The second part, my understanding is, was amended to be this sort of uncertain clause. It wasn't totally wiped out, but it was more like, come back with how you're going to do this, how you'd fund it, where it goes. So, and that work wasn't done. That's basically what I saw in the one report that I looked at.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm all in favor of going ahead with public art. Have been from day one. We have no public art here in Aurora. I just didn't like the dollar amount, Councillor Humphreys. That's the only reason I was going to suggest a limit, but I'm all for moving forward with public art. Speaking to the motion, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Gartner brought up three problems. One was the land acquisition. The second was a project manager. But it seems to me we had a project manager. Can I get confirmation that we did have? It was 2/3.
Yeah, project manager came on partway through.
Fine, thank you very much. So it should be from the very beginning. Okay, thank you very much. This is not new for municipalities to get involved in things like this. A high unexpected number of change orders on a construction project can quickly exhaust your contingency, delay the schedule, and increase your project cost. But often in a political atmosphere, you lowball the budget, and that is designed to get approval. And that's not new as well. So there's three parts to every change order. There's us, people that are paying it. There's the construction guys who don't want to do things and not get paid for it. And then there's the architects. It's a very complex situation. And I would say that the developers are ahead of the ball on it and know the construction industry, know where we are. They also know we're not going to quit the job halfway through because we're not satisfied with them. So there is an absolute good reason to get overall and best things that are learned from projects so that we can avoid them down the road. And, you know, I'm all for that. But if you look on the internet, you'll see that this is not new to us. It's worldwide. Every municipality with a government job that builds a large capital project suffers the same sequence. They want to get approval, and then it goes to build, and they're over budget. We're over budget, I think, 7.7%. And we're going to find out why and how we can learn from that and how we can avoid it at the next capital project. And we are coming into some more capital projects, and the Library Square is one. And the next one after that might be a multi-purpose recreational facility. So we should be very mindful of what's going on. And it also extends into roads and infrastructure and many other big, large projects. I'm in favor of all the amendments. It's been a wholesome discussion. I was part of the Oversight Committee. You know, as I said at General Committee, my role, I took it as to make sure we were on time and on budget. And then it started going array. About halfway through, we brought a project manager on. You know, I'm not in construction. I can't go through the figures and see what's on the horizon, what's going on. My job, I was to provide oversight and to deliver and make sure that it was delivered. It became apparent that we were going to try and come in on budget and on time by eliminating a few of the items. And I did say last week at General Committee that I oppose that after hearing back from the community that that's not what they wanted. So, yeah, we did run into some problems, some extra costs. We did come in over budget, and we tried to portray it as being on time and on budget. But now it is clear, and we're asking for that clarity. And that is how much did we actually spend, and how much are we over budget? And I'm in favor of moving ahead to find that information and to present to the public.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Councillor Rackes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My main concern, I mean, obviously, we all have concerns when it comes to to being, whether we were over budget or not, and how much money we spent, and what it cost the taxpayers. Obviously, every single one of us, I think, at this table are concerned about that. But the same concern for me that keeps creeping up, and that I want to make sure that we don't repeat on any other future project, is the process. You know, for me, you know, things were removed that were needed. And to me, I'm wondering, how did we get to that stage where we removed those when we actually needed them? Where did that authority come from? Who gave that direction? Council never gave that direction, if my memory serves me correct. I've looked through every report. The one in 2015 states that project changes that are being contemplated, and they were presented and will be detailed in a future financial report. And they're summarized, but it never asked for any direction from council. So to me, I look at it as, where did that authority come from? You know, we need to have those policies in place that it comes back to council. If we're going to remove big ticket items that we need, then it should be this council that decides that we're going to remove that, even though we need it, and we'll deal with it later on. And then we can be held accountable for that. Right now, and I think that's the problem right now, is right now we're scrambling and we're trying to figure out who's accountable for it. No one wants to be held accountable for it. And we're sitting here and we're trying to point fingers without actually pointing fingers. And so that's part of the, when we move forward and get to the next project, we got to have those policies in place that people can be held accountable if things happen. And we know who they are. So we're not spending 3 hours every time this report comes to us, basically asking the same questions, as Councillor Kim mentioned. It's a bit frustrating, but the public's frustrated, and so therefore we're frustrated, and we bring that frustration here at the table because we want to make sure that we're being heard. Now, I probably do have a lot more to say, but I think that I'll probably wait until we get that audit report, because we'll have another opportunity to go through this again. But you know, I think one of the big lessons that need to be learned is that process. And to make sure that we set a policy and follow that process and have that clear accountability moving forward.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add, Councillor Marcus, and Councilor Abel both touched on my concerns. That's why we keep going around on this from my perspective. There was a lot of changes made. We learned a lot from the AFLC project. We got a project manager. AFLC, we were given a list of change orders, and they came to us very clearly, and you know how that all went, but we recuperated as best as possible and learned a lot from that project. This was much more larger project. And these change orders continue to come through. And again, what concerns me was on that page 6, what I talked about earlier, is some changes were made that really, I believe, shouldn't have been made. So again, that's why we're going around in circles in this one. I do agree that when we look at the audit, we'll get through that. We'll learn clearly from our approach, and I'm sure that will not be repeated again. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. I believe that's got everybody. One of the reasons that I suggested the audit was because I believe that the audit will, first of all, it's an objective third party, and I believe it will show that all major decisions were made by this council. Calling the vote. All in favor of the motion as amended, please. Contrary? That's carried unanimously, Mr. Clerk. Thank you. That finishes the items brought forward from GC. We have a number of consent items on tonight's council agenda, C2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Any comments on any of those? I'm sorry? No, we did not. We passed the consent, all the ones from coming forward from council last week. These are tonight. I'm always open to suggestions as to how to make this more efficient. Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's kind of to do with C6, C7. It's a Lake Simcoe question, but it's not directly to the actual memo. So do you want me just to bring that under new business? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? Someone move items C2 through C7. Councillor Abel, thank you. Second. Councillor Humphreys, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We will move to motions. We have two motions. One from myself and one from Councillor Gartner. The one from myself, I guess, was deferred. Yeah, deferred from the council meeting of March the 28th. If I may pass the chair to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have a notice. You have a motion for which notice has been given, and I'll allow you to bring it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have had a couple of people contact my office with respect to concerns over dangerous dogs. And if council might remember, we had a couple of challenges last term where we had to deal with dangerous dogs. So this is really just a request for staff to look into to the process to see whether we should do something, how we might do it. It's pretty straightforward, but it's really just responding to some local concerns.
Could I have a seconder? Councillor Perry? Any comments, questions? Councillor Maracas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I guess, to Mayor Dodd. Mayor Dodd, is there any consideration in this to look also at the other aspects of what the City of Toronto looked at enacting as far as choke collars and the preventative measures to protect also the animals?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, the only concern that was raised to me was the concept of dangerous dogs. I mean, certainly, I'd be happy if staff wish to look into that as well.
if that could also be added, I definitely would like to look at the other aspects of protecting animals as well, because not all of them are dangerous. I think some of them have dangerous owners possibly, so we might need to protect the animals from the owner. So
It's usually more the owner than the dog. I'm fine with adding. Yeah.
Thank you. We don't need an amendment? Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Gardner?
The other issue is the retractable leashes. I don't know if they can be very dangerous for the owner of the dog, and certainly for people walking in the vicinity of the dog. So thank you very much for adding that to the list.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. I'll pass the chair back.
Thank you. And the next motion is from Councillor Gardner with respect to appreciating diversity in Aurora. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just read it into the record. Whereas Aurora is a community that values inclusion, acceptance, and diversity, and whereas the Town Council affirms that diversity is welcome and serves to make our community stronger, and whereas we want to send a strong message that we reject intolerance based on race, religion, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation, and whereas respect and acceptance for our differences are fostered by knowledge and understanding, and whereas the town of Aurora has the capability to use its communication tools to provide information and foster positive conversations about our diversity, now, therefore, be it hereby resolved, the town utilizes communications opportunities to provide information, share knowledge, and promote events that celebrate the values of inclusion, acceptance, and diversity. Be it further resolved that the town's social media platforms be used to celebrate and recognize any key community and global events that further LGBTQ rights, human rights, and serve to assist the elimination of discrimination of any kind. These events include, but are not limited to, Pride Week, the Town of Aurora Multicultural Festival, International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, Black History Month, Asian Heritage Month, and International Women's Day. This follows on
Hold on, Councillor. I need a seconder. Councillor Humphreys, back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys, for bringing the motion from the City of Toronto. The City of Toronto passed a comprehensive motion, and, you know, it was a motion for a big metropolitan sanctuary city. Aurora's reality is very different from that and requires a different approach. And in my opinion, this motion speaks to Aurora's reality and Aurora's future.
Speakers, please. Councillor Perry. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely applaud this motion. I think it makes sense. One little tweak. We only highlight some of the discrimination that is highlighted under the Canadian Charter. I don't think I agree with everything that's here, but you know, there's discrimination on age, which I think is a big one that's not included here. So I don't want to wordsmith the motion, but maybe if it's okay with Councillor Gardner, just the inclusion somewhere of the wording. Actually, I am going to wordsmith the motion, and I apologize. If we were just to say gender, sexual orientation, and all other forms of discrimination, I think that it covers it off. Sounds great. Yep.
Councillor Kim.
That was an amendment. I think it was.
Oh, I'm
friendly.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Councillor Berry.
So it was gender, sexual orientation, and all other forms of discrimination under the Canadian Charter.
Is this a friendly amendment then? Okay, thank you, Councillor Gardner. So, did you get that new wording? Thank you very much. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Kim.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank Councillor Gardner for bringing this forward. It's extremely appropriate, and I look forward to supporting this.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of the spirit of the motion as well, and I thank Councillor Gardner for bringing this forward. I'll say more in the to the main motion later, but with regards to the amendment that Councillor Pirie put forward, given that the charter only applies to government, and it's really only half a dozen or so criteria, whereas the Ontario Human Rights Code.
Councillor Kim, it was a friendly amendment, so we're not speaking to the amendment. We're speaking to the main motion.
Okay, main motion. Okay, so I'll continue on with that thought. Is that the Human Rights Code deals with private as well as government, and so that would be actually more inclusive. I'm wondering, to further the friendly amendment, I mean, the Human Rights Code, which is very inclusive, account 14 criteria, including, as Councillor Pirie mentioned, age, as well as marital status, family status, disability, and receipt of public assistance and other matters or criteria. And I don't want to, I know in previous municipal motions I've read, and in federal most recently, a lot of people or some groups can take offense by having their particular criteria being left out. So I think in an inclusive way, I'm just wondering whether we leave it at Clause 1, which pretty well encompasses everything, or if we're going to keep Clause 2 to include all 14 items that are mentioned in the Human Rights Code. So if I can put in a friendly amendment as well, I would like to take out Clause 2 and just keep it as with Clause 1.
I'm sorry?
Take out Clause 2.
That's not a friendly amendment. It's a real amendment.
Okay. Okay.
Just saying.
Okay, let's vote on it separately then.
Okay, we'll pull them separately.
And if we do, and if I could add, because in the second clause, it's not that quite clear in that we talk about the criterias of prejudice in terms of LGBTO rights, human rights, which is just broad, and then elimination of discrimination of any kind, and then it talks about events. And so, if we do decide to keep that clause, I'm wondering if Councillor Gardner is open to putting other criteria like religion. It's in the whereas, but it'd be great to include that in the second clause, as well as marital status, family status, and a few of the other ones. I'm just kind of torn here in terms of I don't want all 14 in there.
I would suggest that when it states these events include but are not limited to, the idea is to be inclusive. I mean, the more you try and put in, the more you run the risk of missing something.
Yeah. Then, can we put in religion then? I think that's a pretty big one, and I think leaving out, it's kind of like having a hockey, the greatest hockey players of all time, and you leave out Bobby Orr and just say it's not, it doesn't.
You could never do that.
You know what I mean?
That would be illegal.
So if Councillor Gardner is okay, I would like to add religion in there. What's this? But not in the second clause, where that's where the action is. That's the actual execution. I know. Then let's take out the.
What events? What religious events?
Councillor Kim, you're going to have to put a solid amendment on the floor.
Okay, so let's put in global events that further LGBTQ rights, religious rights, human rights, and to serve and assist and so on. That's fine. And let's put in the Aurora Prayer Breakfast.
Is there a second for the amendment? Councillor Humphreys, are we considering that a friendly amendment? Councillor Gartner?
Could we put in religious celebrations? I don't. Could we put in religious celebrations? Thank you.
He says it's fine. You okay with that?
That's a
Councillor?
friendly amendment.
Have you got that, Mr. Clerk?
And you're right. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And I fully support the intent of the motion, and I think that Councillor Kim just sort of touched on that that part where Clause 1 has a very broad statement, that, in my opinion, does capture the intent of the second clause. Once you get into the second clause and you start identifying certain aspects, then there's always going to be those that say, well, why wasn't this or why wasn't that? So, to me, the first clause talks about, the sharing of knowledge and information and promoting events that celebrate all of those values that are identified in the second clause. So I think that's my only concern. If we learned anything from the Multicultural Festival, it was that there's always somebody who's going to feel left out as a result of what you try and do. And so I'm absolutely supportive of it, but I just, sometimes it's easier to make a broader statement that's all-inclusive than to just identify certain aspects.
Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And actually, I'm fine with that. I won't consider that unfriendly. I just wanted to put the town council on record as an example to the community. So we could change in the third whereas town council wants to send a strong message. Does anybody object to that? Thank you. So that's a friendly amendment. We don't need to vote on that, Mr. Clerk. So it would be whereas, in the third whereas, instead of we, it would be town council.
That's fine.
Wants. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys, were you? Okay. Councillor Abel.
Thank you. And as a friendly amendment, I feel that we could add those with disabilities, since we do have a statutory accessibility advisory committee. I would just add that we put that in as well.
Councillor Humphrey, Councillor Abel, Councillor Gartner.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, we want to include people with disabilities. I'm not good at motions. I must admit, I labored over this. Yes, let's put that one in. Disability. Or do we want to use the word differently? Those with different. Madam, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Humphreys. Are in the committee, are we using people with disabilities, differently abled? What wording are we using?
Inclusivity. And it's actually through Mr. Mayor, I think you mentioned it here, inclusion, acceptance, and diversity in the first clause. Through Mr. Mayor, I wonder if we're getting to that detail, if we are going to, we don't absolutely want to hurt anyone, and I think by setting the, includes but not limited to, I'm wondering if we remove that as well and just leave clause 1, because I think clause 1 does capture everything. The second clause is to really, accentuate what we want to do, but we don't want to hurt anyone in terms of leaving out any groups who feel that they should have been mentioned, even though it said, but not limited to. It's just a thought, because I understand the intent of the motion. It's perfectly clear to Councillor Perry's point. It's in the charter.
Okay, I'm going to...
I'm just suggesting
we could solve this by just simply, taking the first sentence in the second clause and cutting it off somewhere around.
Yes.
It just went away. And global events that further those causes or something like that. So that would. That way you're not trying to cover everything out there, because you're going to miss something. That's inevitable. Just end it global, yeah, sure. And sorry, I got the mic on. And that the town's social media platforms be celebrate and recognize key community and global events. Yeah. Period. And just take that, because that way you're not trying to cover everything where you inevitably miss something. I mean, I think we all get the point. We all support it. And quite frankly, we do this right now. Communications is really good at promoting those things. So, Councillor Gartner, I'm going to go to you.
I'm fine with taking. I think there was a suggestion to take out the second whereas.
No, I'm just talking about the resolution. We're voting on the resolution.
Before, because I've stroked it out already. So that's okay. No, sorry, I can't agree with you. I like the idea of putting some substantive issues.
Councillor Abel, he had the floor.
But I definitely think we certainly want to include disability. My question was just to Councillor Humphreys. Are we using the word disability? Okay.
Councillor Abel, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another way of phrasing it, but it's a bit longer, those with cognitive and mobility challenges, but the Act speaks about disability, so I thought it would be appropriate. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kim, Councillor Tom.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm a little bit lost. So just to clarify, are we still, we've abandoned your suggestion to end it at global events then? And
apparently.
Okay. If that's the case, I would prefer your recommendation, or as Michael or Councillor Thompson supported as well, is just really clause 1 speaks to everything. If we are going to when we come to a vote, I'd like to have that separately, because I'm not in support of clause 2.
That's fine.
As is.
Councillor Tom, last word to you.
Last word, yeah. Second, I really appreciate Councillor Gartner bringing this forward. I agree that the first clause is a bit more inclusive. Just kidding. But what I wanted to bring up, though, is that the way it's worded now, and I don't mean to throw any undue, wrench into the works here, but wasn't there just a ruling that towns have to be a-religious? I mean, if the town's helping to celebrate and recognize, you know what I mean? I mean, are we getting into a zone here now that we're not intending to go down, or is this going to be free of all kind of controversy moving forward? I mean, I know in Quebec they had a mayor who had been, starting council meetings with the Lord's Prayer, and that was ruled that he couldn't do that, and so I'm just wondering, are we going to wade into this territory here, or is it just going to be, someone's having a celebration and we're going to, retweet it? I mean, that's why I think it's better to be broader, and that way you can, again, it can encompass all of this without getting super specific. So it's a question. I don't, it could be a pretty, narrow interpretation of what's been written in the second clause, but I just wonder, are we going to have an issue with that or not?
I'll go to the solicitor. I have absolutely no idea. Patricia, can you help us?
Hello. Hi, sorry. Through you, Mayor Dahl. I know which case you're talking about, and it was more about the Lord's Prayer and having it said at council. I'm not sure this would have an issue because it is part of the Charter and the Human Rights Code, so just saying religious, there shouldn't be an issue.
Councillor Tom?
That's fine, and I guess what my concern would be, I'm a Christian man, but, if we're going to be celebrating Easter over our social media or something like that, or celebrating Lent or whatever, like I said, I just thought I'd bring it up, but the solicitor has let us know that she doesn't have an issue with it, so I don't either.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. The reason I added and all other human rights under the Charter, under the third whereas, is to prevent us from having to go through and cherry pick different ways that people could discriminate, to make sure that it's found in the second operative clause. I would say we just stick to Councillor Gartner's initial operative clause, remove religious celebrations, remove persons with disabilities. All of it's covered in the third whereas clause, and we'll just vote on it and move forward from there. I don't think we're excluding anyone. The motion as a whole, as it's read, says specifically that we will include everyone. Otherwise, we're just going to sit here spinning our wheels for the next 20, 25 minutes. So that's my recommendation. Let's just move on this. We all want the same thing here. And
Well,
either...
Do you want to make an amendment, Councillor?
Either put them all in or take them all out. And so I think it's easier at this point just to remove the last two that were added in and just vote on it.
Okay, is that an amendment?
That's an amendment.
Is there a second for Councillor Perry's amendment, please? I do not see one, sir.
Okay.
Councillor Gartner, last word to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to have disability in there. I think this town has spent a lot of time, effort, and appreciation for that and for the AODA. So, and it's increasing its protections and respect. So I'd like to have that in there. But I believe that I meant to take out the second clause and replace it with the third whereas town council wants to send a strong message. The second clause was only in there so that town council would be identified as kind of leading this. So I've already stroked it out. So if anybody wants to, this has just gotten way more confusing than I thought it was going to be. So if you want to vote on the second clause separately, that's fine with me. But I have already asked that the third whereas town council wants to send a strong message.
That's fine.
So I don't really think we need the second one.
All right, and we're going to call the clauses separately. There's two clauses. Council, please. Calling the first one.
Before we do this, Mr. Mayor.
You've already been twice.
It's important.
We're going to be here all night, Councillor.
Really quick.
Quick, please.
I'm sorry, I'm breaking the rules, but I just heard a comment by Councillor Tom, and it's a good. If we vote against Clause 2, we don't want to be taken as not supporting it. So the message has to be clear that if you vote for or not for, it's
Okay,
it's
thank you. I get
that's
it.
a big problem. So should we take it off right now before we vote on the clause altogether?
No, I've already
Okay,
called the vote.
that's
We're gonna
fine. I
call
thought
the
I
vote.
just said-
We're calling the clauses separately. All in favor. All in favor of Clause 1? Record a vote, please, Mr. Clerk. And we'll probably have a recorded vote on Clause 2, okay? Just saying.
Say it loud.
Councillor Thompson has called for a recorded vote for Clause 1 of the notice of motion. Councillor Peary, how do you vote? Councillor Peary votes yes. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. Mayor Daw, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Daw votes yes. Councillor Tom, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Tom votes yes. Councillor Gartner, how do you vote? Councillor Gartner votes yes. Councillor Maracas? Yes. Councillor Maracas votes yes. Councillor Humphreys? Yes. Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. And Councillor Abel?
Yes.
And Councillor Abel votes yes. That motion carries.
Clause 2. Recorded vote was asked for Clause 2.
Recorded vote was asked for Clause 2. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote? Councillor Gartner? Yes. Sorry, Councillor Gartner and Humphreys vote yes. Mayor Daw?
Yes.
Mayor Daw votes yes. Councillor Tom? Yes. Councillor Tom votes yes. Councillor Thompson? No. Councillor Thompson votes no. Councillor Maracas? Yes. Councillor Maracas votes yes. Councillor Kim? No. Councillor Kim votes no. Councillor Peary? Yes. Councillor Peary votes yes. And Councillor Abel?
Yes.
Councillor Abel votes yes. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Who'd have thought? Regional report from March 23rd. Comments or questions on the regional report? Someone put that on the floor, please. Councillor Maracas, thank you. Would someone care to second? Could we all pay attention? Councillor Peary, you seconding? Thank you. Any comments or questions on the regional report? Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make mention, I asked for this to be deferred because I had a question, but I actually talked with regional staff, so I got my answer, so I have no questions. So I just want to let you know why I asked for it to be deferred.
Perfect. Thank you. All in favor then? Opposed? Carried. C2. New business. Councillor Maracas, please.
It's right after this. Public service announcements is right after this, right? Yes. Councillor Gartner was just asking when public service announcements are? Right after the new business. Okay. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I have a couple, which shouldn't be a surprise. I always have new business. The open house for the Highland Gate Park proposal, I just had a couple of residents ask if there will be a link on the website soon with what that proposal was showing, and I know they had a little flyby and stuff, a video, and so a lot of the residents are asking, will that be made available on the website, maybe through you to Mr. Downey or to Mr. Ramuno, I'm not sure which one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have a meeting tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, with Highland Gate to discuss just that. Not only that, but some of the issues that were raised at the meeting, so that all that information will find its way onto our website. So that is one of the points of discussion tomorrow.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Downey, and thank you, Mr. Chair. So through you, actually, my second one through you is to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, I was just wondering if we can get an update on the artificial turf soccer fields, the one at the SARC that we're going to be doing, and the switch over with the one at Shepherd's Bush, and as far as timelines, and are we on time? Is everything on schedule?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the switchover, we have been in communications with the Ontario Heritage Trust and the Conservation Authority with regards to the placement of larger turf field at Shepherd's Bush, and they have agreed. So with that, we contacted the contractor, asked for a reduced scope of work at Stuart Burnett, and we have now entered into an agreement with that reduced set of work. We've met with them, I believe, early April to look at a schedule. My understanding is that they are now in a position where they have signed the agreement with the town for those works. They are presently contacting their suppliers to ensure they have all the required materials, and they are going to be on site in June 1st. That's what my understanding is, commencing work to be completed this fall, so we are on time and on schedule. Once that work is completed, then we can then focus our attention on moving forward with the reconstruction of the field at Shepherd's Bush.
Councillor?
Thanks for that update, and it's great to hear. I just brought that up as there was some misinformation floating around that that this project was stalled. So I'm glad to hear that it is on time and on schedule, and we're going to get this completed. And then finally, Mr. Chair, I do have one thing I've heard. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard through the grapevine that that the region is not looking at adding in any widening of roads until 2031 unless it's on the books currently. And I'm wondering if you could, is that correct?
Specific? No, it's not correct.
It's not correct? Okay. There's
specific roads?
The word is that if the roads aren't already on the books to be widened, that they will not be looking at adding any more regional roads to widen until 2031.
They're going through the DC bylaw right now, so if you've got a specific road, I'm happy to check into that for you.
Okay, well, I'll discuss that with you offline. Sure, thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few weeks ago, I raised the issue of the seniors' art classes being moved from the senior center to the SARC, and there were problems with no water in the room, counter space, their library, which they use for references, over at the senior center, and I understand that the senior center is very busy, and it's fantastic that it's so busy, and we do need to move some things around, but I don't think the seniors art class is one of those for just some pretty practical logistical reasons. Could I have an update through Mr. Mayor for Mr. Downey?
Please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly I had this exact communication with staff today. We have been drafting a letter or putting a draft together in response to the petition that was sent to members of council. And we will be sending out that. If it wasn't done today, it'll be done tomorrow. And we will not be moving the art class out of the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. We believe that is the best location for it. We do have some other programs that we're looking at putting in those spaces at the senior center in order to grow their programming. And so we feel that it is the appropriate location for the art classes, and we'll be informing the members that we will not be moving it.
Councillor?
As a follow-up, we have a group of people who do, in this case, art classes, and are very unhappy that they were moved out of their location to another location, and I don't know if they were consulted or not, but they have some really specific reasons that make sense. Is this a decision that staff makes alone? How does a decision like this get made? And are these people then, is that the final answer? Are they just basically can take the classes there or not? They can just, I mean...
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the process for location and the types of programming, that is an administrative role. So we were in discussions with the users. We're always looking at trying to make sure that we address as many of their concerns as possible. The petition was sent to council. It was never presented at the podium. There was never a request for a staff report with regards to this, or there was never a request by the user group that there be consideration be made by anyone other than staff. So we were in communications with them. We did take a look at the history. We looked at registered for the program and whether those folks re-registered for the program again. This isn't the first time that we've held the program there. This will be the third time. We're finding that we're not getting a reduction in the amount of people who are applying for or registering for the program. So that doesn't seem to be, so the location doesn't seem to be a negative impact with regards to the number of people registering for the program. That is certainly went into our consideration. But also we are looking at trying to get more programming and additional programming for the seniors, and our easiest way of growing that program is within the senior center itself. And then once it becomes successful, it's a good problem to have, but once it becomes successful, we may actually have to move some of those programs out. But program space is certainly very precious to us, and we are looking at maximizing it as much as we possibly can. So a lot of consideration was given to this, a lot of discussion among staff, but we wanted to get a decision out, and as I said, I gave direction today to send that email out.
Councillor?
Thank you for the explanation. There's going to be a lot of unhappy people, and I support them in their unhappiness.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Dodd. There's been a number of questions about Hartwell Way and when it's going to be opening, especially with news about some of the closures along St. John's. And so I'm wondering if we can get an update out with regards to Hartwell Way and when will that street be open to the public?
Mr. Ramuno, do you want an answer now, Councillor Thompson? Or
Sure,
would you like
or it can come...
Perhaps you could send a memo to council. Mr. Ramuno, would that suffice?
And maybe even post something on the website.
Yep.
Right? There's just been a number, or perhaps tweet it out, or however we'd like to deal with it. There's just a number of questions, and I know there's some misinformation there as well.
Thank you. Councillor Abel. Councillor Humphreys.
Good. Sorry, that was one. I had just a quick question. Some of the residents are just wondering, as the development starts to happen in Highland Gate area, how would they call in their concerns or questions? Do they just phone the customer service line and it gets funneled that way, or is there an official process?
Mr. Ramuno, can you help us with that?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Downey mentioned, we've been meeting regularly with the Highland Gate developers, and they are establishing their own hotline, and they'll be providing numbers to the residents, the budding residents, who can call in with any concerns or complaints. Likewise, residents can call into the planning department, and those calls will be directed to our municipal engineers. And again, we'll have a hotline directly with the developers who are going to be on site to resolve any issues that may arise.
Councillor?
That's great, because one of them was just, they just want to understand how we're going to monitor the progress and if everyone's following guidelines and so on. So that, I appreciate that. And my other was, I know that, again, Hartwell Way, there's a lot of concerns, and with the closure of St. John's, they're sort of trapped. Very trapped in their neighborhood. So if there's something we can do to speed that opening up, I think would really help those residents who are anxiously waiting. Thanks.
Councillor Tom. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mayor Dodd. Just regarding Councillor Thompson's question, I asked that question a few months ago to a former staff member, and he had told me that it's still the developers still consider that road to be unassumed road. They didn't want to take responsibility given that there's still construction going on, and their preference was to have that development completely built out before they allowed public usage, and so that I guess there might be a transfer of liability perhaps, but that's what I heard, and I'm sure Mr. Ramuno will give us a more detailed response, but that's what I had heard a few months ago. I just wanted to confirm, the former councillor John Gallo had a list of questions, and I think most of them had been directed to staff. But I'm just wondering if the one with dealing with garbage and recycling, the discrepancy between Yonge and Industrial Parkway, north and south and Bayview. Has that been directed to staff to come back with a further report through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nadarasny?
Mr. Nadarasny.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't necessarily take comments from the podium as a direction to go out, fill out reports, but we can certainly get some information to Mr. Gallo on his question.
Given that he took the time to table that here, and I'm sure that question, it's the second time that's come to my attention because a similar question came up last year from another resident. If you could bring that report back, it might be just a one paragraph one, but certain businesses, they might be included in a program that would allow them to do recycling and garbage. Young and Industrial Parkway may have one but not the other, or Bayview. So if you can kind of give us a historical context why the decision was made and what the businesses who do not have access to these services, what they can do to apply for it, if at all. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Thought I'd lighten things up a little bit. First things, Michael, I believe you've been here for about 2 days now, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We just installed these nice systems so that we could vote electronically at every vote. Wondering when that's going to be coming around.
Mr. Clerk.
I'll get the hang of this. Through you, Mr. Mayor. April 20, the April 25th meeting. We're planning to launch that.
Ready, Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under new business motion number 3 from the Environmental Advisory Committee at the December 6th meeting of this committee, it was asked that staff be directed to investigate the feasibility of containment or removal of Phragmites and report back to Council within the first quarter of 2017, and that a public education strategy be developed regarding Phragmites, dog strangling vine, and Japanese knotwood. To be honest, I don't believe that this was enough time for all of this to be gotten done by the end of the first quarter of 2017. Just wondering if we could get maybe an update report on how this is coming sometime soon.
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, we had a meeting with the Arboretum Friday. I think it was Friday, and this was part of that discussion. And Barry Bridgeford, who came forward as a delegate, has provided us with a map of where he feels these invasive species exist. And we are then going to be reaching out to our environmental manager, Christine Aguio, to put together a report and some strategies on how you might be able to deal with this. Our biggest issue is cost estimate and how we're going to determine a cost estimate related to this. We're also somewhat waiting to find out how successful the program was on the small patch of land just north of Tim Hortons. We went in and did a program last year. It cost about $10,000 to do that, but we didn't know whether or not it was going to be successful, and if it is, then maybe we have a method in order to do that, and then we have a cost estimate based on that area and that type of thing. So the first thing was to find out where it is, and Mr. Bridgeford's been instrumental in helping us with that. The next thing is to work up some strategies, and I have been in communications with Mr. Tree, and he will be talking to Christine with regards to a report or a shared report with regards to how we might deal with this issue. Timing-wise, good question. As I say, one of the issues is how successful was the existing program. We have to kind of wait, so that's not going to take us very long to figure that out if it sprouts up with the weather we have now, and that's great. And then secondly, are there any other practices, and we're looking at it right now, best practices on how to deal with this, and whether we want to deal with exactly how we want to deal with it, whether we want to control it or we want to eradicate it. Because those are two completely different systems, whether we want to use mechanical devices or whether we want to use chemicals. and because there are cost implications with both, and whether or not whatever method we use is actually going to be successful, and we need a little bit more history on that. One of the issues with regards to this particular thing is there's very little work being done on the removal or eradication of this. It's everywhere. And so very much if Aurora went in and spent a significant amount of money dealing with this issue, doesn't necessarily mean that we would be able to be an island to ourselves. It would then start creeping in from the other adjacent municipalities who aren't doing anything. So we are concerned that if whatever we're doing is going to have some type of level of success, but more importantly, the council has a clear understanding of what the expectations are for success and what the future of this might possibly look like.
Councillor? So we're going to go back to Councillor Perry for public service announcements, and I'll come back to Councillor Maracus for something. Nothing? Councillor Kim, any PSAs? Councillor Tom, please.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And I just wanted to say thank you to Royal Canadian Legion Branch 385, the Regimental Council for the Queen's York Rangers, the 1st American Regiment. I'd also like to thank the Queen's York Rangers, 1st American Regiment, and really all those who came out to the event on Saturday evening, this past Saturday evening at the Legion in Aurora to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Vimy Ridge. There was a number of members of council and obviously yourself, Mr. Mayor, and but also the Mayor of Newmarket, members of Newmarket Council, the Mayor of Markham, and members of Markham Council, and a lot of people from our communities that that gathered to remember Vimy Ridge 100 years ago, and not only the 3,000 Canadians that gave their lives on Vimy Ridge, but really all Canadians who've sacrificed for our country overseas. And so, again, I wanted to extend my thanks to them and to everyone who came out for a great evening.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an announcement on Tuesday, April the 18th. Wasn't picked a good day for council, but anyway, council members. New Roads is hosting a girls' night out, a girls and guys' night out, and it is featuring a fashion show by MR Menswear. Mike Granthi and his team have joined forces with New Roads Automotive Group, inviting both men and women for this first-time event to create further awareness and funds from the MS Society and the Women's Centre of York Region. Tickets are $25, and it includes a men's fashion show featuring York Region firefighters and community leaders. Brad's not in it. Along with live silent auction, foods, drinks, all kinds of great stuff, and 30 business-owned booths for women and to look around and see what great items are available. So again, it's at New Roads, and it starts at 6:30 on April the 18th.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Abel.
The Portraits of Giving is having their annual recognition of community members that give, and that's next Thursday at PAF Audio. Excuse me, Audi. I got audio on my mind. So that's at Mulock and Leslie Street. It's $45. Great event. Pictures of all the people. It's Karen Merck is quite an established photographer here. It's a great event. Mr. Mayor, you and I had the privilege of attending the GO Station for an announcement of funding from the federal party of $1.899 billion, and specifically aimed at the Barrie GO corridor. And our MP Kyle Peterson and MPP Chris Ballard were in attendance. And it really was talking about the tracks and at-grade level crossings, and that the feds were now putting in earmarking money for that. So that's a realization for our community, and I thank that. I also attended the Chamber federal budget discussions with MP Leona Aslev and MP Kyle Peterson, and I highlighted the things from the budget for the federal budget just released and how it affected our area. And it was basically talking about housing strategy and child care and caregiving and infrastructure investment and investment in innovation and something they call super clusters. So it was just great to see our MPs engaging with us and telling us how the budget affects us here for this year. So that's my public service announcement, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't able to attend on Saturday night, but I was able to attend the Cenotaph on Sunday for a very moving, very small ceremony, and there is no way to adequately express appreciation for the sacrifices of those who've stood up for our country and the world in the service of peace. But thank you. And also, it is the holiday of Passover, so I'd like to extend wishes for a very happy holiday celebration to the Jewish members of our community.
Councillor Gartner. Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's great to hear about the 1.9 billion and added funds. I hope that means that we're going to be getting those underpasses that we're asking for. We heard that there was no funds, and now if they're throwing in 1.9 billion, hey, we're just asking for 3. We're not asking for all 9. So I think there's enough funds there for those 3. So, Mr. Downey, if you can push for that, please. I just wanted to throw in, everyone was talking about Hartwell Way. I just wanted to make note and let everyone know that it is on our actual agenda for next week at GC. It is an item it speaks to it, and it speaks to that it'll be opening prior to September. So I'm sure we'll have a full discussion about that next week. Just wanted to point that out to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just do a couple of quick ones here. The Run Walk for South Lake, or as I like to say, the Run Walk and Hobble, is coming up on Sunday, April the 30th. Last year, we took the coveted cup. We're having a little challenge getting a little push there on the fundraising, guys. So runforsouthlake.ca, and you can find out more. You can search for either one of your favorite team members or your favorite team, which of course would be Team Aurora. And the fastest Councillor Kim. Wristbands are still, Mr. Downey, are wristbands still available for Saturday, or do you know?
For the Easter egg.
If there are, there's very few, right?
Right.
We're normally sold out, so I can't tell you whether we are right now. I didn't talk to Shelley and ask her whether we're sold out, but it's a very popular event, and we will sell out at the Easter egg hunt.
That's the Easter egg hunt, which is a lot of fun. Aurora.ca/Easter egg hunt. The Aurora Art Show is coming up in May, and applications can be submitted until Tuesday, April the 18th. So if you want to register some paintings, and it's always a great event to come to, I highly recommend it. And last but not least for tonight, the annual cleanup day is April the 22nd, and we would like you to register, and you can go online at the town website and do that. I've had actually a number of people call me, and a lady came to see me on the last Friday about litter. And we don't do it, but we get tasked with cleaning it up, which is a little frustrating. So we'd like to get as many people out as possible on the litter. The clerk? We get the clerk? Well, and it's my pleasure to officially welcome Michael Durand as our new clerk. Michael, welcome. Michael comes to us from the town of Uxbridge. We did pass the bylaw 2 weeks ago, so he was official at that point. But you weren't here, so I hope we weren't paying you.
No.
Okay, that's good.
Definitely not.
So welcome, Michael. We look forward to working with you. And I want to thank Samantha, who sat in tonight to make sure Michael got it all right, for all the work that she and Linda have done over the last couple of weeks. So thank you very much for all your extra efforts. Council, that is it. We have no other bylaws tonight, just the confirming bylaw. So if someone would put that on the floor, please. Councillor Maracas. Councillor Thompson, all in favor? Contrary, that is carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Councillors Humphrey and Tom, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. We missed our break tonight.